It would help if I unmuted myself. All right, so repeating. I'm not going to make the same joke. This is the next portion of the conference leading up until lunch break. So happy to introduce for our SCORE network, Dr. Michael Shuckers, UNC Charlotte, previously now emeritus at St. Louis University. So turn it over to Shuckers. Take it away.
Thanks, Ron. I didn't realize my age was going to be part of my introduction, but thank you anyway. It's great to be here. Going to talk to you about an educational initiative that we've got going on here. It's hosted at Carnegie Mellon. I'm one of the leads on that, and so basically trying to use sports data to get more and more students into a data science and statistics pipeline. So the goal here is to build a sustainable network for developing, disseminating sports content. So the SCORE comes from sports content for outreach, research, and education in statistics and data science. And so we've got a screenshot there of the website. Right, it's a project that combines academia with sports industry. National network there. We've got a Pittsburgh hub. This University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon. As I said, Carnegie Mellon's the lead. We've got a New York hub that is St. Lawrence and some of my colleagues there, West Point, Yale, and then I threw UNC Charlotte on the New York hub. I didn't know where else to put that. And then, yeah, sure, yeah. It's a good way, realignment, yeah. And so we've got a group out at Baylor and also Azusa Pacific there as part of our Texas hub. Goal here is to create publicly accessible materials that educators can just basically plug and play into their classroom with an idea that it's going to have motivational pieces. We know that sports gets a lot of students excited and willing to work on a lot of more interesting projects, a lot of more challenging models, and to work hard, I think as our panel pointed out, right? Working hard to learn these things so that they can be in sports. Everything's publicly accessible. Citations are supported, right? And these are pedagogical resources. I'll talk a little bit more detail about that. Also working on research to engage with folks, and a strong emphasis there on outreach, on DEI, and on building this pipeline for data science. We have an emphasis in terms of the content of sort of moving outside of the Big Four, Big Five sports, and trying to enlarge that pipeline by bringing in a lot of data from women's sports, a lot of data from non-traditional sports and esports. This is a picture of our network. And so the SCORE network is both educators and industry professionals. And I'll talk a little bit about the role that industry professionals play in a little bit here. But the educators generally do the writing of the material and the generation of the content. Doesn't have to be that way, but that's mostly what has been happening. Right? We ask the industry partners to be involved in the review of these to make sure that we are asking the right questions, the questions that are relevant to a particular sport. Right? And then we tie this all together with a short video introduction to the material, we call them modules, to that material that hopefully motivates. And we know that, right, faculty members such as myself, if I can get students really excited about some data or some analysis, but if I've got it introduced by the great Sam Ventura, right, of the Buffalo Sabres, right, that's going to pique their interest and give them a little bit more motivation that this is something real and this is something, right, that's not just an academic talking. The plot up here and the map that we've got shows our academic and our industry partners. We've also involved here. We're about the midpoint of the grant, so we're about 2 years in, about 2 more years to go. And so we've got to also have some students that have been involved as well. Okay, I mentioned the modules. Modules are a structured thing, right? So we're getting our money from National Science Foundation, so we've got to have a fairly structured set of educational modules here. And those are structured because we know what the best practices are. So all of the folks on the educational side that are working on this, right? We are talking about some really fantastic and great educators, right? Some of the leading folks doing education work in statistics and data science. And so learning objectives, part of and delineated as part of those modules. That also is something that is searchable, right? So if you can go to the web page and you can search, you can look for these are learning objectives, right? We want to learn about a two-way ANOVA, or we want to learn about a two-sample P test or proportions test. So data sets, lecture notes, handouts, activities. We try to do this in multiple formats. Languages there is software, Python, R, et cetera. And right, easily downloadable and accessible. There's the link. I'll share a QR code at the end. Again, we're trying to have a very, very broad range of topics here. This is just a quick list. This is actually from the proposal and probably needs to be updated. Yep, Rebecca, there we go. But to show you the range of topics, primarily because we know that the entry point for a lot of students is your intro statistics, intro data science, right? A lot of the content really we want to get to those topics and those areas. A couple of example modules. On the left is a module of a West Point grad, I can't pronounce his name and I'm not even gonna try, who has now made the red. So he did this module, West Point grad and math major, and the module is on time to steal a base and all of the aspects of that and looking at distributions there. On the right-hand side, we've got women's triathlon data. So women's Ironman data, looking at correlations between various aspects of the performance side, not the transition side of the triathlon. This is a little deeper dive into that module on stealing bases. This is from ISLE. This is a format, I guess a software format for doing statistical analysis that's generated here, created here at CMU. And so you can see there's some various pieces here. And all of the modules have that introduction, right? We've got some materials, we've got some content. We want to get to some parts of conclusions and getting students to be active with the data, as well as, in this case, this module actually has several videos, but trying to have each module have a single video at least. The modules here, we want to make sure that we are giving credit to educators for them so that we go through a peer vetting process. So not quite a peer review, right? But we want to ensure that there are certain standards are met for these modules, right? As I mentioned earlier, there are best practices, and so we want best practices to be met. You've got listed some criteria here. We are not calling this peer review because peer review can be somewhat antagonistic. Those of you who have been through that process know the process of dealing with editors and associate editors. Our goal is to get every one of these modules, right, over the goal line. We want them all to be published, right? And they will be evaluated then on by educators in terms of their download. So we're calling this peer vetted instead of peer review. What you have in that image is a little bit of a process, but we have a submission process, we have an editor, we have an associate editor as part of that. Then the reviews are done. We have one pedagogical review, we have one industry reviewer. And so we get a module on volleyball, right? We're trying to get someone who works in volleyball industry or analyzes volleyball data to be our industry reviewer. We also try to get students involved in the process. They're the ultimate end user of this, and so we want their feedback in terms of how appropriate and how much they're learning from that as they go through. We also have a data repository. Thanks to Ron. So Ron is in charge of our data repository. Again, it is a searchable and tagged data repository. Some of those go with modules, some of them don't. So Ron is great with data, uses lots of data in his classes. And so, bringing that sort of thing in. Again, there's a submission process for that. We want all of these data to be in a well-structured format. But it is, as I said here, right, pretty minimal. But we do want to have a minimum standard there for that. So I will just end here with the SCORE Network QR code. This will get you to join the network and be part of what we are doing. And so that gets you updates on our workshops, where we're going to be at conferences, as well as helping us find reviewers. We need reviewers, we need reviewers, we need reviewers. Our modules, at this point, we have 70 modules that are in some sort of process of that review, right? So they've been submitted to us. We have in the neighborhood of somewhere between 20 and 25 that have gone through the full process and are either published or are back with the authors to make some final edits to where we get them out and push them out. We have goals to expand and continue this process. And so if you go to that QR code, you'll also get some questions there on what roles are you willing to take as part of that network, generation of modules, review, et cetera. And we would be very much appreciative for anything that you're willing to help us out with. I'll be happy to take a question or two.
I think time for one question. Oh, I gotta go all the way to the back. Okay. Yeah, don't fall.
Sorry to make you run. Do you have a coding language of focus, or do you kind of accept anything or multiple?
We accept anything.
Okay.
Right? We know that there are uses for all kinds of languages, all different sort of formats, and we are pretty agnostic to what that looks like. I'll just point out the two modules that I showed you. One that was in ISLE is a baseball module. The other module is not in ISLE and is basically just downloading a worksheet and a data set for students to work through. So we've got a variety of ways that modules can look, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's thank Dr. Shuckers for taking the time. You can ask questions about SCORE during break. We're gonna switch over here. I think I'm just gonna go with this walking microphone. All right.